What is up, everybody? I know it's election night, and I know there's a lot to talk about, but that still doesn't mean that we need to stop when trying to win our fantasy football leagues, right? That's not okay. We still got to do, but we got business to take care of tonight. Probably going to be a short one, but we're going to get into it right now. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and let's roll. Justin, how we doing tonight?
Good. Just trying to keep an eye on the election, and because I teach government, so like definitely something we'll talk about tomorrow. So just super interesting night, but fantasy football doesn't stop. Still trying to look at waivers tonight. Just trying to figure out what I want to do for the next couple of days. So.
I agree. I'm in the same boat as much as America is election night, but that doesn't mean we have to just take the night off. We can do a short one tonight. So let's jump right into it, Justin. News and NFL news.
What's going on?
A little bit of news out there, specifically some trades.
Yep. So we have a couple trades. I'll just go over a few of them. I feel like most of them are defensive. So you have Baron Browning going from the Broncos to the Cardinals. Mike Williams going to the Steelers. Khalil Davis, a defensive lineman, going back to the 49ers. Preston Smith, sneaky pickup, going to the Steelers. Tre'Davious White getting traded for maybe a copier machine to the Ravens. Marshawn Lattimore is probably the biggest one, going from the Saints to the Commanders. And probably the biggest head scratcher, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a minute. Jonathan Mingo going from the Panthers to the Cowboys. Zadarius Smith, love this pickup, going from the Browns to the Lions. And then lastly, maybe the most fantasy relevant one is Khalil Herbert, who we talked about on Wednesday, going to from the Bears to the Bengals.
And he tweeted today, thank God, he was ready to get out of the Bears. And as a Bears fan, I'm starting to see some old Bears habits. DJ Moore walking off field mid-play. The coaching staff is losing that team, and really a talented team. I could see a coaching change here very quick. So we'll see what happens to that.
Would you like to see? Ideally, would you like to see Ben Johnson there? Would that be your ideal guy?
Yes, I would love to see Ben Johnson there with that setup. 100%. I'd take that all day long.
Either of those Detroit coordinators, I think, would be really good there. Whether it was Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson, I think they came out with a report that Ben Johnson wanted that job, and that's basically why he didn't take those other jobs. So he said, "I'll just wait here and see what happens." So
that's all it's going to take is 1 year.
He is a brilliant dude. So, how do you feel about the Khalil Herbert? Like, how do you feel about that fit? Like, do you like it? I mean, Zach Moss just went on IR, has a neck injury. Some people would compare it to like Chris Carson from the Seahawks a few years ago, where he just kept having recurring neck injuries.
I think I like it. I don't know. Now it really feels like Herbert is in more of that true backup role behind Chase Brown. Chase Brown looks really, really good right now. Put up some numbers, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But Herbert is a really good running back, and he's underutilized, undervalued. So I think Cincinnati got a steal on him, and I think he's going to be hungry. He is certainly worth a waiver wire ad this week. Go get him if he's not already on your team. But I think he'll get some touches for sure. So we'll see how it goes. I like it. And then again, I'm like, well, I just don't know how much impact he'll have right out of the gate.
Yeah, he'll be a UDFA after this year as well. So, like, he has all the reason in the world to be successful. And the Bengals, I feel like the Bengals feel like they have to outscore everybody. So they're just going to play really high potent offense. And hopefully there's a lot of red zone trips where they're just like, all right, we're just going to put the bigger back on the field.
Yep, I agree. Let's talk some injuries from week 9, Justin. Week 9 was very, very interesting. The biggest one, probably the one we probably need to talk about, is Dak Prescott, who is down and out, and now we have their backup quarterback Rush coming in. How does that impact, in your mind, the rest of the offense?
Rush didn't look too bad against us. He drove down one drive and scored on us. I think Dak and CD both got hurt. Like, CD had, I think it was a stinger or an AC joint kind of thing. He scored a touchdown or had like a 2-point conversion he caught, and one of our defensive backs just like shoved him real quick, and you could tell he was in a lot of pain. I don't know if it'll have a crazy impact. I thought Dallas would be more active at the trade line, not mentioning Mingo. I thought they would sell some players. I don't think it'd be a huge impact on CD. I think is what you're looking for. I think they're still gonna. I think that offense still goes through him. But I mean, Dak probably going on IR. It looks like with that hamstring, like you could tell he was in a lot of pain when it happened.
Yeah, I do think I know Rush will be okay. I think he'll be good in the Superflex leagues, that type of stuff. But I think the biggest gainer in that offense now is Dowdle. I think Dowdle's value actually increases in that offense. Not that he's super great, but I think he's been consistent enough, and he did okay this last week too. So I think there's a little bit of a bump for him.
Like Zeke I feel like Zeke's kind of got shunned a little bit. So now it's kind of Rico and Dalvin. Dalvin doesn't look quite himself. Jake Ferguson looked good. The other injury in this game was Drake London as well, which, I mean, being a top 12 wide receiver right now, he had a hit pointer and something else. They said he's day-to-day. They said he's good.
Hit pointer is interesting. Just dealing with it myself. They can linger a little bit, but we'll keep a close eye on him. Another guy that I'm really high on, but actually we always talk about Eric All has a right knee injury, and it's feared to be a torn ACL. I haven't heard if that has been confirmed or not for the Bengals. Okay, yep. So that is a done deal. Other players, the Puka Nacua wasn't injured, but him getting tossed out for throwing a punch was interesting. I'm not worried about Puka or Cooper Kupp in that offense. So another guy, man, a kid that I'm actually really worried about, because this is not the first time. But Chris Olave, another concussion.
It was a bad one.
Very worried about him moving forward. It seems to be concussion after concussion after concussion for him, which is a very scary thing for the NFL and football players.
Yeah, it was bad.
I think the only other thing that I got is AJ Brown still out. He was ruled out in the game. Hopefully he comes back soon. Although I'm going to hang my hat on this. I said this last week. They have to get Smith involved more, even when AJ Brown is back. I think they're a better team when Devontae gets the ball with some frequency. Because Barkley is an absolute stud, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I mean, he was a magician this last game. So I'm looking for AJ Brown to come back, but they need to continue to feed the ball to Devontae Smith. So I think that's it for notable injuries. I know there was some worry about Caleb Williams. I'm not worried about Caleb. He'll still play, but we will move on to last week's scores, Justin. Let's jump right into Thursday game. The Jets versus the Texans. A surprising win. Jets knock off the Texans 21-13. Another Garrett Wilson sighting, who had probably, I mean, there's argue over who had the better catch. So it was pretty cool. Some big numbers in that game. Mixon had another big game, 106 yards and a touchdown. Just been pretty consistent. So I think keep rolling him out there. Had a Dell sighting. Would have loved for Dell to score a touchdown, 6 catches for 126. Any takeaways from your end?
Just getting a little concerned about Brees. I think that's the biggest thing for me in this game. Brees, I don't know if he can be an RB1 the rest of the year. I don't know. He just hit a rough spot. I really believe the talent, but I just don't know if he could be it this year.
Yeah, he needs to score touchdowns. 15 carries, 74 yards, no touchdowns. Devontae Adams did have he showed up with a touchdown with 91 yards too. So moving on, keep rolling out your studs in that game for sure. Bears versus Cardinals. I owe everyone an apology. My poor Bears, I thought would be ready to bounce back from the week before, and oh my goodness, they laid an egg. Really, everybody did. They had 5 catches for 104, probably the bright spot. Everywhere else, the Bears' offense was awful. Like I said, losing 21-9. Even the Cardinals, they didn't do much from a fantasy standpoint because they were up. They didn't have to do anything. James Conner, 18 carries for 107, but they were like, we'll just run the ball. And it was Benson and DeMarcado. Yeah, or the ones that score the touchdown. So just like, geez, Trey Bride had a rushing touchdown for 2 yards, but there was nothing really even there. Big disappointment with Marvin Harrison Jr. But again, the game script was we're just going to run the ball.
Yeah. This was a very fantasy and relevant game. I started Marvin Harrison in the Guillotine League. He almost got me killed. So I'm very happy I won by like 2.1 points still in it, but like he almost killed me.
Well, we as a group here, we're very big on this game. Start the Bears, start some Cardinals. I think there was one Cardinal that we were starting, but we said start all these guys. I was big on Caleb, start Swift, and they all kind of laid an egg. So moving on, Cowboys Falcons. Justin, again, we talked a little about this. Take us away from the Falcons' perspective.
Kirk Cousins looks really, really good. This offense is good. Bijan looked good. Mooney is Mooney. Just a little concerned about Drake, but man, like this offense is going. They're just churning out. They have like the lowest 3-and-out rate in the league right now. They have the Saints this week, who just traded probably one of their better defensive players. I think Mooney is a must start this week. Have to start him. I think they're going to go crazy with Bijan and Tyler Algier. Maybe rely on them a little bit. Dak again probably out for a little bit. Matt already alluded to Rico Dowdle. Probably a pretty easy start. I think the rest of the week. Jake Ferguson and CD, I'm not super worried about. I think you still start those two.
Yep, 100% agree for sure. Those are. I also think maybe Ferguson gets a little bit of bump too, but they're still going to throw the ball. Big, fun game to watch if you had an opportunity to watch it was the Bills Dolphins. That game was back and forth. Bills starting off slow and coming back. Josh Allen, 3 TDs, one interception. Not much in the running game for Cooks or any of those guys on that side, but lots and lots of passing. Josh Allen spread the ball out very, very well in that game. I'm really disappointed on Dalton Kincaid. He's hard to start. You're still rolling him out there every week, but Shakir, in my eyes, is the clear number one for the Bills. You have to roll him out there, and then you're kind of guessing on who would be that number 2. Could be Kincaid, could be Coleman. So you're kind of like, we'll see how it goes. As far as Miami, 2 touchdowns, 231 for tag. Tua. Achane looked pretty good. 12 carries, 63 yards. He did get the touchdown to what helps him, but it was almost a near split with Raheem Mostert. 10 carries, 56 yards. Would have liked to seen Achane get a little bit more in that script, but it is what it is. Tyreek Hill led the way for receiving yards with 4 catches for 80, but it was Devon Achane getting the dual work, which saved him. So he scored a lot for us, and Mostert is the one that fumbled. So I still think you're rolling out of those guys. It is clear that they have to have Tua in that offense for them to be even remotely successful. You got to keep rolling with it. So,
all right, Matt, I'm back.
All right, man. I even got an assistant. So let me. Cap for life, good to see you, my friend. Glad you're here. He's got a question for us before we go to the next game. Would you guys give up Dylan Jacobs for St. Brown and Madison?
I probably like the Dale Jacobs side. Madison's just nothing. That's the tough thing.
I don't want anything out of that offense for sure. So, Cap, I think no. I think I'm keeping Dell and Jacobs. Jacobs is just getting too much of the workload, and Dell,
you got to bet on the upside.
He's a player. Yeah, I would love. I mean, as much as I love St. Brown, I like the Jacobs Dell. I mean, if you're trying to get Dell and Jacobs for St. Brown and Madison, then yes. But I'm not going to give up Dell and Jacobs. So, you have another add to that flex spot: McMillan, Tolbert, or do I pick up Robinson or Daniel Jones? Since I lost Dak, I have Darnold as my new group. I would imagine it's not Bijan Robinson.
No, Brian Robinson? There's no way.
Brian Robinson on your waiver, Cap? Well, that's a really good question.
Yeah, answer that question. So flex spot, Nick, I think you don't go Tolbert just because that offense is going to take a hit. I think, like Matt said, I think Rico's going to get a lot of work. I think McMillan has looked good. Like, it feels like, but he did go out Monday night, so who knows if he plays. Daniel Jones is rough. The only reason I like Darnold's been down a little bit this year. He's been coming down.
Yeah, lost you a little bit there, Justin. I just pick up McMillan. Put him in your flex. Don't have Daniel Jones. Don't pick up Daniel Jones. Darnold's going to be fine as your number one guy. You're good. As far as Demarcus Robinson, just leave him out there. I don't think it's worth a pickup. Hope that makes sense. I'm gonna roll with McMillan. If there's an opportunity to trade, I don't know what your rest of your team looks like to trade somebody for a different spot. I don't know what your team looks like, but look for some trades to upgrade your team in that flex spot for sure. Hope that helps, my friend. Moving on, we had, roll back to my sheet here. Bengals, Raiders. I think we kind of knew what this one was from the very beginning. What I did like to see out of this Bengals Raiders game, certainly love Chase Brown. 27 carries, 120 yards, just took it away. Joe Burrow had 5 TDs for 251. Not worried about that. Gesicki, again, 5 catches for 100 yards, which is in 2 touchdowns, which is fine. We've said don't get him, take him, and I was ready to drop him because I liked Eric All so much better. But now that he's out, Gesicki might be a guy, and they are Chase. Chase Brown is not going to be impacted by Herbert, in my opinion. I really think that Chase Brown will be the number 1. Herbert will be that number 2 now that Moss is out. So we're going to talk about trade fours. Jamar Chase, 7 for 43 if you can get him. That now might be a good time to get him a little bit cheaper than what you think. And Chase Brown did have those 5 catches for 37 yards and 1 TD. As far as the Raiders, I am not picking up any Raiders. There's no Raider that I want other than Brock Bowers because he did have the TD, 5 catches, 45 yards for 1 TD. Zamir White did have 6 carries for 10 yards and the lone rushing touchdown, but I'm not interested. I'm definitely not interested in Zamir White. No showing there that we need to worry about. Chargers Browns was a get back to that. Get Justin back here in a minute. Chargers Browns game. This was all Chargers Browns. Just struggled with anything. Although I still like Cedric Tillman. He was the lone bright spot in this game for everybody. 6 catches, 75 yards, 1 TD. Jerry Jeudy did have some just as many targets as Cedric with 7 for 73. So those are the only 2 bright spots. Nick Chubb sighting. I'm just really, really worried about Nick Chubb. As much as we love the guy is an absolute beast. But 15 carries for 39 yards. That's 2.1 on the average. Not it at all. J.K. Dobbins did do very, very well against that Cleveland Browns defense. 14 carries for 85 yards, 2 TDs. Herbert did have a sighting of 2 TDs, which was kind of cool. Quentin Johnson had one for he had a 66-yard long with 4 catches, 118. I'm still not on the Quentin Johnson bandwagon. I think you'll see games like this from now and then. Really, with all the wide receivers, I'm really more interested in the running game with Los Angeles. If I was going to pick anything, it's too hard to pick the receivers that I want. You know, you got Quentin, you got McConkey, and Josh Palmer. You'd be roll the dice each week of what you're trying to get. So either one of those, I'll stay away from. If you have them and somebody pops off on a big game, I go ahead and try to make a trade. See if you can put them in a package to upgrade your team. So moving on, New England and Tennessee Titans. So in overtime, I will tell you that Drake May didn't look that bad. I thought he looked okay. He had that interception at the end, which looked horrible for him, unfortunately. It was tough, but I think he's improving. I think he's going to help out that New England offense later. So Ramondre, again, he had the 1 touchdown, but just 10 carries, 16 yards. That one really hurt. Hunter Henry is tight ends, as we know, are always a safety net for those rookie quarterbacks. He was their leading receiver, 7 catches, 56 yards, and the only touchdown came from Ramondre. Again, that's the only saving grace for him. Mason Rudolph's getting the start. Still 2 TDs, 1 interception, not much going on there. Pollard did have a pretty big game. 28 carries for 128. So if you've got him in your lineup, good for you. Calvin Ridley seems to continue to dominate. 5 catches, 73 yards. Would have loved to have seen him on a TD there, but he didn't get it. Westbrook ended up getting that touchdown. And there was another one by Nick Vant. But Tennessee got a long ways to go. And I think we all know that. So Cap, for sure. I say, okay, let's take a look here. I have Darnold, Jacobs, Achane, Dobbins, Dell, Smith, McBride as my starters. 3/4 of my team had buys, has had bye weeks. Do I really need to make a move? No, man, your team looks fantastic. Man, the only thing I think of is maybe a quarterback upgrade, but I still like Darnold a lot. Maybe, I don't know what your record is, but your team looks pretty good. I like McBride a lot. I think McBride is stellar. He's been a favorite of mine for a long time. Smith, I'm assuming that's Devontae Smith. Like I said earlier, I love Devontae Smith. I really, really, really feel they need to keep him involved in that Philly offense. You could probably, if you wanted to get creative and try to upgrade to a better wide receiver, maybe a Dobbins and a Dell to package somebody up. I like Smith a little bit better than Dell, but overall it looks good, my friend. Looks good. I hope your record's awesome, man. I hope you're crushing it. Moving on. Commanders and Giants. Again, just game review here a little bit. Just talking some ball. We'll get Justin back here soon. Jaden Daniels, 2 TDs in that game. Both of them to McLaurin. McLaurin just really had 2 catches, 2 TDs. But this game script was mostly running. They ran the ball 38 times. They were up pretty much the whole game. So didn't need to do a whole lot. Eckler had 11 carries for 42 yards, did have that 1 rushing touchdown. So if you had him plugged in, Daniel Jones, 2 TDs, still not interested in Daniel Jones anywhere. Tyrone Tracy has just a firm grip on that running back slot in New York, 16 carries for 66 yards. Would have loved for him to score, but Daniel Jones had 7 rushes, 54 yards in that TD. So Neighbors still seems to be the lead dog. 9 catches, 54 yards on 11 targets. 59 yards. Would love for him to score. Didn't get any scores there. There were a couple of throwing scores, which we saw. So, Cap, I'm in 5th place, 6-3 in a 14-team league. I'm playing my number 4. That's why I'm asking about upgrades. Yeah, I just found out my opponent has 3 players. Oh, nice. Hopefully this is a good week. Hopefully we get no surprises. Hopefully you're crushing it. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you're going to be well into the playoffs. You're just looking for seeding, right? So good for you, my guy. Good for you. Moving on here. Saints Panthers. So this was actually a good game. Saints leading this game, and I really thought Derek Carr coming back. I picked him up in a Superflex league thinking maybe we can see a little bit of the old Derek Carr. He didn't look good at all. 236 and 1 TD. A lot of it was all Kamara, and I think they overplayed this game a little bit. 29 carries, 155. He also led the team in catches, 6 catches for 66 yards. The biggest takeaway for me is Chris Olave. That hurts them tremendously. 1 catch for 13 yards, and he is out with another concussion, which is scary. So I don't know. I think the sneaky pick for the Saints is Taysom Hill. If he's available, go pick him up for sure. He's gonna get some sneaky plays. Bryce Young came back in, or he's back for the second week. 177 or 171 on the yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Hubbard's still getting all the work. And look, Hubbard's the only reason why Brooks is not back already. 15 carries, 72 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Hubbard is 100% carrying the load. It would not surprise me, and we've seen the Panthers trading people away, that they trade Chuba Hubbard at the trade deadline. I can totally see it coming if they so choose. So, Cap, yeah, I'm trying trying to get that bye week. I hear you. Just trying to get through it. 100%. Receiving wise, it's going to be really bad for the Panthers. I don't think we're going to see much of anything. I do like Jalen. I think it's Coker a little bit down the road, but Leggett is doing okay. He led the way with 6 yards, but it really feels like the Panthers are just trying to really, really find a rebuild. So. Ravens. No problem with the Broncos, and we talked about this earlier in the week last week. There was going to be no issues. Bo Nix, I still like Bo Nix. He had 223 yards against a pretty darn good Baltimore defense. Javonte Williams, we told you wasn't going to be anything. 12 carries, 42 yards, and they fell behind, so they had to throw a lot. Sutton looked pretty good, 7 for 122. There was really no touchdowns other than Bo Nix had that throwback for a touchdown. But really nobody else in this receiving world for the Broncos. Zay Flowers continues to impress the last few games. 5 catches, 127 for 2 TDs. Derrick Henry continues to impress. 23 carries, 106 and 2 TDs. So Lamar Jackson didn't have to do a whole lot, 3 TDs and 280. So it was a dominant performance. As much as we like the Broncos defense, I just don't. In that game, it was going to be tough. 100% was going to be tough. So keep those guys rolling out there. Keep rolling your studs. Eagles, Jaguars. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but we'll talk about the Eagles here in a second. But Trevor Lawrence still just trying to struggle. Man, I think the kid's got all the talent in the world. Just needs to find a head coach and an organization that'll support him. He got paid a lot of money, but for only 169 yards and 2 interceptions against this Eagles defense was rough. Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby did absolutely nothing rushing wise. Game they got behind, they had to throw the ball a little bit more. Evan Ingram was a top pass catcher, 10 targets, but only had 5 catches for 45 yards. Jaguars, I'm completely staying away from. They are just going to struggle. Hurts looks good. 230 had 2 TTs. Saquon Barkley. How good is Saquon Barkley? We told you guys early on we loved him behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. He had, magician-like moves when he was just dancing over people. 27 carries, 159, and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts had 13 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith. This is what they have to do. Even when A.J. Brown ends up being that kind of go-to receiver, they are at their best when they get Devontae Smith involved. 4 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. He led the way on 6 targets. A.J. Brown, two receptions, 36 yards on 4 targets. I like that mixture. Keep that mixture a lot. A.J. Brown is a stud wide receiver. You're going to get him the ball. But the way Kellen Moore runs his offense, which we've seen for ever and ever and ever when he was at Boise State, when he just bounced around in with Denver or Dallas, and San Diego, now he's in Philly. He's got all the tools in Philly, which reminds me when he played at Boise State. It's the same type of construction with players, just way more elite talent. So I like what he's doing there. I know they're 6-2. I had those 2 losses, but keep Devontae Smith engaged. I don't know that you'll see much of the tight end, which typically he likes his tight ends and getting them involved, but he loves the slot guy. Keep them involved, and they're going to put up some fantasy points. So we're counting on Kellen Moore to keep Devontae Smith going. So I like him a lot. Moving on, Packers Lions. Thought this game would be interesting. Packers came out hot, and then it was all Green Bay. It was Green Bay early on, and then all Lions late. Goff, neither quarterback was super impressive. Goff, 145, 1 TD, and Love with 273 and no touchdowns and interception. But this one just turned into kind of a defensive slugfest a little bit. But Montgomery and Gibbs both did well. Gibbs had the big 65-yard run for a TD. That was the bulk of his, the long was 18. I apologize. He had an 18-yard run. I'm thinking the week before when we had busted that big one. And then Montgomery, 73 yards. You're going to continue to see that split workload. Both of them be great. The one, and this is why I told Cap not to trade Jacobs, 13 carries, 95 yards against a pretty good run defense in the Lions. So keep him plugged into your offense. Passing wise, St. Brown led the way, did have 7 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. Laporta is a great buy low. Buy low on Laporta. We will see Williams back next week, but it's not going to matter. You can still get Laporta really, really cheap. I would go try to pick him up. Jalen Reed led the race, six targets with 113 yards, 5 receptions, no touchdowns. But Jalen Reed has got your low. He is the lowest floor for this offense with potentially the highest ceiling, and they're just going to bounce around. Kraft did well, 4 catches, 34. Dobbs 4 for 28. I think even Wicks had 3 targets, but nothing there. And then Christian Watson had 3 for 37. It's pretty much how it's played out in Green Bay, which we talked about early on how it was going to be a mix. So Rams, Seahawks. I love the Rams playing 4-4. Seahawks started hot. Now they're cooling off a little bit. Now that Stafford has got his full repertoire back, love me some Matthew Stafford. If he was on your waiver wire a couple weeks ago just because everybody was out, hopefully you scooped him up. Absolutely love it. 2 touchdowns in that, 298, only 1 interception. Kupp, 11 receptions, 104. And then Demarcus Robinson, this is what you were talking about earlier, Cap, was 6 catches, 94 yards, and 2 TDs. Not for me. If you do have him, I would look to trade him away, see if you can upgrade him somewhere. It's going to be streaky. But Kyron, obviously, I think I talked about that, 22, 69 yards. And then he also had a catch a little bit later. Remember, Puka only had the 1 catch on 4 targets because he threw the punch and got booted. So, and that's whatever. I'm not worried about that. Geno Smith threw the ball a ton. I think we're going to see this a lot with these guys. It is what it is. 360. He threw 34 times, 21 completions for 364. Did have 3 TDs, but he also had 3 interceptions, which hurt him. Kenneth Walker continues to do well. No touchdowns, but did have 83 yards, 25 carries. Like to see the average a little bit better, especially against, in my opinion, not a very good Rams defense. JSN still crushing it. Love me some JSN. 7 catches, 180, and 2 TDs. He's a guy that you have to go get. And he, to me, has surpassed Lockett. We talked about that earlier this year. Lockett 3 catches, 63 yards, and 1 touchdown. Vikings, Colts. Kind of moving on. Flacco. We thought we'd see a little bit more out of Flacco. Just didn't do much. He did have the 1 interception, only had 179 yards. JT still seems to be up or down, 13 carries, 48 yards. I still think he could be a good buy low. I think you just don't know what you're going to get with them. The Colts, which we talked about this, Josh Downs or Pittman. I was more of a Downs guy this week, which he was 6 catches for 60 yards, kind of the bright spot for them. Alec Pierce, who is an underrated good wide receiver, in my opinion. We just don't utilize him enough. 3 catches for 41 yards. And Pittman only had 1 catch for 14 yards on 4 targets. So I'm a little bit down on this Colts offense. They've got to figure out what they're going to do with the quarterback setup. Very, very disappointed in AR5. Anybody that says I wanted to come out because I'm tired, I don't know what to tell you, guy. It is what it is. You're not a football player, in my opinion, if you're going to say you're tired, especially in the NFL. Sam Darnold looked really good, 3 TDs. He did have the 2 interceptions for 290 yards. Aaron Jones continues to dominate, 21 carries, 64 yards. No rushing TDs for any of those guys, but we did see a Cam Akers sighting on 6 carries for 46 yards. So we might give Aaron Jones a little bit of spell, which is good. Justin Jefferson continues to dominate. 7 catches for 137. Was a little dinged up in that game, but I think he'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. Josh Oliver and Addison both had 5 catches for 40, 50 yards, and each had a touchdown, which is pretty cool. So it's nice to see a Jordan Addison sighting here. He's such a good player. And Monday night, last night, and I know we all had our hopes up, really hoping Tampa Bay would beat the Chiefs. Definitely not the case. Chiefs working their magic. Mahomes working his magic, I would say. But Baker looked pretty good. 200 yards, 2 TDs. They definitely split the running back stuff. Bucky 7 carries for 24, and then after that, Sterling, Mayfield, White, and Sean Tucker. I like Sean Tucker a lot. I think he could supplant Rashad White. Bucky looks pretty good, but it was more of the passing game. We told you about Cade Otton. We believed Cade Otton did well, and I believe as Justin told you to start Cade Otton, I think he may have told you to set him, but I was like, no, you got to start him. 8 receptions for 77 yards and did have that TD. Sterling Shepard also looked halfway decent with 4 for 48. And another kid that I like a lot, I really do like that, Trey Palmer. Probably not going to get a lot of reps with the other receivers coming back eventually. So Kelsey coming back to life a little bit, 14 catches for 100 yards. But the man of the hour, the man with the money bags on our clip here in the very beginning, DeAndre Hopkins, 8 catches, 86 yards, gets the 2 touchdowns. And Patrick Mahomes has found a new toy in DeAndre Hopkins. Oh my goodness, he just looks absolutely good. Kareem Hunt also very, very well, just dominated the backfield, 27 carries for 106 and 1 TD. So I started Kareem Hunt in a couple of my leagues. I was happy to have him go off for sure. But man, DeAndre Hopkins, I wish Justin was on. We would talk about it, but DeAndre Hopkins fooled me. It didn't not feel like KC was just fishing for wide receivers and just kind of like cast it out there, pull one in. One wasn't good. Cast another one, and I think they finally found a guy in the old crafty vet Hopkins, which is really, really cool. I'm certainly impressed. Give me just a second here. And I'm glad you guys are hanging with us tonight. Lots to talk about. Again, we know the elections are going on, but why not talk a little bit of fantasy football? There's really not, let's jump over to, I'm just going to play it just because. There's not a lot of waiver wires for week 10. So if you're looking at guys for tonight, there's not much there, to be honest. Drake May, if he's on a waiver wire, I think I brought it up earlier. I think you got to go get him, and he may be a starter after this week. I think he looked pretty good. So guys that you do have on by this week in week 10, Jordan Love, Geno Smith, James Winston, and Gardner Minshew. Nothing really crazy other than Jordan Love, maybe a little bit of Geno, but I think in a single quarterback league, there's plenty to choose from. Superflex, hopefully you got a backup. There's Drake May's probably one. I'm not a big Daniel Jones guy. If Russell Wilson is out there, I think you got to pick him up in all leagues. He just seems to be he's been doing okay. A little bit of revival, a little bit of miracle grow coming back in him. I'm not sure that I love him, but I think he can win you some games and maybe even late. So keep that in the back of your mind. Cooper Rush. I think Justin and I would talk about this. Cooper Rush is one that if you're desperate, I think you can get him. He's serviceable. He's a guy that okay, I'll utilize him if I need to. Running backs on bye this week: Jacobs, Walker, Charbonnet, Chubb, Ford, Madison, and Zamir White. Don't really care about Zamir White. We may see Christian McCaffrey come back anytime soon. So we need to keep a very, very close eye on that. And that's been all over. I'm not the only one reporting that. It's like, what do you do with him? I'm not sure what we'll see out of him. If I had to guess, I don't know if he'll be the guy that we've seen in the past. I think now this is where we start to see the decline. But his decline might be better than some normal running backs. So I could certainly see you grabbing him. Zach Moss, which we already talked about, you can go ahead and drop him. He is now on IR. So if Garendo or Jalen Warren are still out there, I think you have to pick them up. I like them a lot. Estime is also a guy that I think you should consider picking up. I think they're going to give him more work now that he's coming back off of injury. So and he is an interesting cat. And I think Chance would appreciate that. He's like, hey man, they liked him as much as he was a Javonte Williams fan. I like Audric Estime quite a bit as well. Trey Benson got a touchdown. Maybe. maybe. I don't know. Something to look at. Cam Akers is another one that looked halfway decent. I don't know. I think you're going to have to see Aaron Jones get injured. And I think Cam Akers is probably taking over Ty Chandler's place, so keep that in the back of your mind. Roschon Johnson is 100% the running back 2 in Chicago now with the Khalil Herbert trade, and which kind of brings me up to what do you do with Khalil Herbert? I think you got to pick him up. I think I brought that earlier. Pick him up. He is worth a stash on your bench for sure. Moving on to wide receivers on buys this week. All of your Green Bay players, Metcalf and Seattle players, your Browns players also are on buy as well. So quite a few wide receivers in Reed, Dobbs, Watson, Wicks, Metcalf, JSN, Lockett, Tillman, Judy, Moore, and Myers. So quite a bit of guys, receivers that are fantasy relevant are out this week. So guys that you maybe want to consider or maybe raise your eyebrows, Quentin Johnson. I'm just not a Quentin Johnson truther. I think I'll let somebody else pick him up. Could Leggett be the guy for Carolina? It's possible. I'm just not sure. I think it's a wait and see. If you want to try to stash him, if you got room, it's worth a flyer. Mike Williams is now in Pittsburgh. So maybe, probably not this week, but maybe the week after he plays a little bit. But I'm just not, a big Mike Williams guy. Certainly not sold on it. If Jalen McMillan is still on the waiver wire, you have to pick him up. I don't think he is any good leagues. He's been picked up a long time ago. So as Cap said, I think we're starting him in our flex. If Ricky Parasol's there, if you need a deep guy, Raymond McLeod is a great one to pick up for Atlanta. Do like him quite a bit. Tight ends, again, injured or on buys, Brock Bowers, Njoku, Kraft, and Fant are all on buy this week. Gesicki, Mr. Mike Gesicki, if you're ever watching this show, you have been on our show about nearly every week of saying he's droppable, pick him up. Man, now that Eric All's gone, maybe he's a guy you pick up. He looked pretty good this last week. So he's probably a pickup again. Hunter Henry, he's definitely worth a pickup with Drake May throwing the ball back there. Taysom Hill, we already told you he needs to be rostered in all leagues. You just never know what that guy's going to do. He could pop off. I think that's about it. For waiver wire pickups. Might not get Justin back, and that's okay. Not a big deal. Not a lot going on tonight, guys, and I know you guys are all busy, but again, we want to make sure that you guys are winning your leagues and just getting any trade advice or fantasy advice from us. We will help you get there, and sometimes we're in this thing together, right? Sometimes I pick off of what you guys have put in, so I like that when you guys are we're communicating together. So I think that's going to be it for tonight. Short one again. Everybody's focused on the elections. Hopefully you went out there and voted, but other than that, I think we are going to run away. We will be back tomorrow for sure. And until next time, we will see you next time. All right, guys. Later.